anybody. Just, I don't know, vote. So, I mentioned Paris. There's a psychological syndrome called the Paris syndrome.
Okay.
And it's a disorder that mainly, if only, affects Japanese nationals. And it occurs when they visit Paris.
Yeah.
And they get what would be called, I guess, extreme culture shock when their expectations of Paris don't meet the reality. And
they get extreme culture shock?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right, so they get high anxiety, delusions, feelings of persecution, and they just lose it, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's very strange, and it's a real thing, and apparently it really only happens to Japanese people in Paris. But we were talking before we came on about other people experiencing the same kinds of things. I think I mentioned like the Venice Beach Syndrome, where people show up and they think Venice is going to be a certain way because of stories they've heard.
Yeah. And
they get there and it's all very confusing. They don't know who to trust, who to talk to, what to do. They're buying CDs from the CD guys.
Yeah, and it's like what? It's like 17 blocks the boardwalk, but they're completely confused about that and they can't figure it out.
Right, you get lost.
Yeah.
Get lost at the beach. But then if they don't just stay for a couple of days and they move there, or they're street kids or whatever, within a couple of weeks, as they get themselves familiarized with the place, they start to get what I would call like newcomer syndrome, which is this idea that they have it all figured out suddenly.
Right.
They get cocky and think that they, know where everything is and where all the cool spots are and who to talk to. And then very shortly after that, they realize how wrong they are. And then they leave.
Or they stay in delusion about it.
Right.
As
but
we know, a few
down the
people.
Line, yeah. Usually, well, even if they do run into trouble, sometimes they stay in that delusion and just chalk it up to, oh, that's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Like the theft and the violence and just the craziness is part of it. Like it's supposed to be that way.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's common in any place that has enough hype that people have the wrong idea before they get there. Well, they hear stories and it doesn't quite measure up, so they manufacture reality in their head to make it match.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that everyone going to a place pictures it, looks at pictures of it, and pictures it in their mind a different way than it usually is. And that's always jarring when you first get somewhere. It throws you off completely.
Yeah. Huh. There's another really weird psychological syndrome called the Fragoli syndrome.
Yeah, that one's weird. It's a rare psychological disorder that is often combined with paranoia. Fragoli syndrome is when someone thinks that different people are in fact all the same person, just in disguise.
Right.
This can then develop into a paranoid state whereby they believe that this one person is persecuting them or perhaps following them around. Also, they can become confused about objects, places, and events and believe them to all be the same as well. This disorder is related to their schemata or mind map And so they will see someone who looks like a person they know, and then they will believe it is that person.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Yeah, you know what's really weird about that too, going back to some of the people that I knew at the beach, like,
Yeah.
I think I knew some people who kind of suffered from like a version of that. Like,
Yeah.
there was like one guy who seemed to be everywhere, who was always out to get him. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of times that was the Snapchat guy.
Right. Evan.
Right, Evan. Right.
Yeah.
He seemed to be everywhere. Right.
Yeah. This one time I was sitting with Reed, and he goes, blue Nike sweat shoes. And I turn and, like, there's this guy walking, and I go, who's that? And he goes, that's Evan. And it's not Evan, but he thought it was Evan. You know? Maybe
right.
it was.
Maybe it was. But there was another thing like that where suddenly, like, anyone wearing New Balance shoes was a suspect too. Like, that was like the sign too. And then I looked, and then I was like, wait a minute, Martha wears New Balance shoes. She's part of it too. Like, it just became so absurd. Like, what? That's so strange. Like that the whole world can turn into one person who's out to get you.
It'd be so scary.
Yeah, I never suffer from that. I was always pretty convinced of that.
When I ran away one time from Heritage, and I was out, like, on the second day, and I was in a car, I'd gotten a ride into Salt Lake City, everyone in every car looked like staff members to me, you know, I can kind of get that, you know, but that was just me being, like, totally paranoid the entire time. Yeah, but anyway.
That makes sense. I had a situation like that myself where I was in this town and I suddenly there were and to this day I still don't know if I was delusional or if it was real. But suddenly I realized that there were people following me around, and I knew that if I didn't leave like immediately, that they were going to come get me. And and I have some evidence that tells me that it might be true. Right. But I don't really want to go back and like revisit that, like, and test it out, because I don't want to be. I'd rather be. I'd rather believe that it wasn't true, but not. I'm not going to test it. Yeah. You know, it's like, whoa. Sure. That's it's super creepy. I think that people who go through, you know, traumatic experiences with groups of people certainly can fall into that belief, and you know, sometimes it is true. You know, it's not a delusion. It's no, you really are being followed, and you really are being observed, and yeah.
So there's the Cotard delusion.
That's the opposite, right? Oh no, the Cotard delusion is
it's a walking corpse syndrome thing.
Oh, where people think they're dead.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
I felt like that some morning.
They stop eating and drinking because the dead person doesn't eat those things. Right. Wow.
I mean, I've had instances in my life where I like questioned if I was still alive. Like, for sure. There were definitely times in my childhood or my teenhood or my adolescence in the places I was in, but also, like, when I was at Winds of Change, like, the repeating of songs from the 70s because of what's his name. So, like, there was kind of, like, a lot of, like, you know, Eagles, you know, Hotel California being played over and over again. And to me, I kept thinking, like, wait, did I die here and I'm just stuck here working on this farm and this is what we do now and this is it? You know, just for like a moment or two. But I never felt like I was dead and I didn't have blood and I didn't need to eat. I know I need to eat. Trust me.
Sure. But, you know, that's a pretty good, at the worst, that was a pretty good representation of what someone's idea of hell would be like, I think. Absolutely. Sure. Like, and in hell, you know, I guess you don't need to eat. You don't, I mean, you're already there.
No. Yeah.
You know, you're like, give up. You're already in hell.
Yeah.
So there's another delusion that is kind of the opposite of the idea that one person is out to get you. It's the Capgras delusion theory. It's when people believe that someone they know is not the person they're pretending to be, like it's an imposter. Like, I'm just dressed up to look exactly like me, but I'm not really me.
So I've had this.
Wow.
So when I got sick with encephalitis, pretty deep into it, I was having like seizures every 5 minutes and I was losing my memory on certain days. Like, just like I had, or like I'd ask about something and I'd have no recollection of an event that happened. And I started to believe that, and I was kind of up every night and asleep all day, so I had no real social context, but I was also like, my brain was under attack. You know, I was going through like multiple rounds of like multiple car crashes all day. So I started to kind of like think that my parents every night were being plugged into a machine and they weren't the people that they thought that they said they were, and that everyone was part of this game, and that I was kind of in this kind of experiment. I don't know how else to explain it. It was kind of crazy, though. That was the beginning of my madness, really.
It's super creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
So, that, I mean, I'm glad you don't think like that anymore.
No, I still do. Dun, 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 dun.
Dun,
No.
dun, dun.
No, I don't.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up for the day, and I guess we'll just leave our listeners with this idea. Are we really Shorts and Aurelius, or are we really imposters?
Right. Are we really Shorts and Aurelius, or are we really imposters? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's questions.
You know, it's something to ponder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can, and people can ponder that while they like or dislike this video.
And subscribe.
I think either way, whether you like it or don't like it, you can subscribe so that you continue to get content that you like or don't like.
And we really like to hear from you, so please, leave a comment if you're listening. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.